Hi, welcome to Project Analog Photography, where today I'm going to be taking a close look at the Rollei 35S, one of the most unique 35mm film cameras ever produced. Now, if you want to take a closer look at some of the pictures that I'll be showing in this video, or just want to read more about the camera, please consider visiting my website, projectanalogphotography.com. So, without further ado, let's get started. The Rollei 35 was first introduced at Photokina in 1966, where it then went on to full-scale production in 1967 all the way to 1980. At the time of release, the Rollei 35 was the world's smallest 35mm film camera, only to be outdone by the Olympus XA in 1970. However, with the Rollei 35's superior build quality and superior optics compared to the XA, this led to the cult following that it has today. As far as pricing goes on the secondhand market, you can get one of these Rollei 35Ss for as little as $150 for a functional user condition one. However, typically for a decent copy, you're probably going to spend between $250 and $400. And there are several Rollei 35s that reach into the thousands of dollars in price tag, but those are special collector's editions Rollei 35s. When talking about basic operation of this camera, it's important to note that this is a viewfinder camera. So, when looking through the viewfinder, you don't see a rangefinder patch. So, to focus the lens, you need to guess approximately how far your subject is away from you. And then, using markings at the top of the lens, you can actually determine how much depth of field you have to work with at a given aperture. It should be noted that the Rollei 35 uses an antiquated PX625 battery. This is a 1.35 volt mercury battery that's no longer available, but you have a few options. Number one is get a wine cell battery. That's also rated at 1.35 volts and has the same form factor as the original mercury battery. However, these batteries are not really known for lasting too long. Another option would be to go with a modern battery, a ubiquitous 1.5 volt battery that you can actually put in an adapter that drops it to 1.35 volts. Don't be fooled though, there are some versions of these adapters on eBay that don't actually drop the voltage and they're much cheaper. Usually you could get like 3 for $10. I would not suggest using this because your light meter is going to be off. And your final option is to send it into a repair shop to have your light meter calibrated to 1.5 volts. Obviously the benefit being that you could get batteries anywhere. However, this is a very expensive route when an adapter would have worked just fine for the same exact purposes. Loading film is incredibly simple. Just flip the lever that's on the bottom of the camera, pull the back off, and you have access. Now, the film actually goes from right to left, which is kind of interesting because your frames will actually be upside down relative to the frame counter that's found on the bottom once you develop it. So that's kind of a quirk. When it comes to adjusting the film speed, there's a sub-dial within the aperture dial that gets rotated. I would highly suggest putting your finger on the aperture dial so this way it doesn't spin, because that's just going to put a lot of stress on the mechanical armature down here that locks it into place. The controls on the camera overall are a little bit fiddly, but nothing that you can't get the hang of rather quickly. One other thing to be aware of is that the light meter is actually in the top corner of the camera, so you want to get the fingers out of the way when you adjust the dials, because if the sun's beaming down from the side, your hand or your finger could actually cast a shadow on the light meter, which will give you very inaccurate readings. When it comes to build quality, I must say the Rollei 35 is pretty impressive. It's got a good weight in the hand, all metal construction. It does have plastic dials, which is kinda lame, but I don't think that that's going to be breaking anytime soon. And the other thing is that because this is an all aluminum construction, that means that if this camera suffers a fall in almost any way, whether it's off of a curb or off of your coffee table, you're going to get depressions in the corner or rash on the sides, and that's really going to hurt the value a lot, and it's just kind of an eyesore. So, I mean, if you're a perfectionist, you definitely want to baby this camera. In terms of accessories, there are flexible film hoods for this camera. That's actually a good thing to have because I missed several shots due to weird lens flares that happened at just the right spot, as you can see from this example. So if you could get your hands on a lens hood, it might be worth it. this camera uses a 30.5mm filter, which can be a little bit hard to find, but if you scour eBay long enough, you'll definitely find what you're looking for. In fact, I was even able to find an infrared filter for this thing, so it's going to be a lot of fun to shoot some of that Rollei infrared film through it. In terms of usefulness and practicality, the camera is very practical. You can take it almost anywhere given its form factor. It's a very pocketable camera, and if you're going for a hike or something and you like to spend a lot of time in the woods but don't want to carry around a lot of camera gear, this is also a great option. And most importantly, this is a loved camera among street photographers. You're able to get right up close into the action, stay relatively incognito, and get the job done with razor sharp optics. This is really the way to go if you want to be very discreet. So in summary, looking at the pros of this camera, it's small, it's got a razor sharp lens, very high resellability, it's reliable, it has a cult following, and superior build quality. The cons, on the other hand, is that it's relatively expensive for what it is, especially given the small size, and you do have limited repair options. It does use range focusing, which is kind of difficult to get a hang of at first, and it's a bit fragile, so you are going to need a case for it if you really want to keep this thing in tip-top condition. If you plan to take care of this camera and treat it as almost ornamental in nature, but demand high portability and razor-sharp optics, this might be the perfect camera for you. I hope you enjoyed my review of the Rollei 35S, and if you have a question about this camera, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Also, if you enjoyed my content, please feel free to subscribe or clicking the bell icon to be notified of my future videos. And again, if you want to take a closer look at some of the photos that I just showed you in this video, you can do so on my website at projectanalogphotography.com. So, with all that said, get out there and take some photos.